And I thank the member for Eden Monero for her contribution to this debate. I would, however, humbly point out that it's not just members of regional Australia and rural Australia who are geared to care. Members of my community care for lots of people in aged care as well. Members of Australians who live in metropolitan areas care greatly about other members of their community. That's the thing about the Australian community. Regardless of where you may live, regardless of what you might do, we care for each other. It is not simply the reserve of those who live in the bush. Mr Deputy Speaker, it has been said that the great enemy of truth is not the lie, which is deliberate, contrived and dishonest, but the myth, persistent, persuasive and unrealistic. We enjoy the comfort of opinion with the discomfort of thought. I ask this chamber to consider, this House to consider, whether this MPI does not exactly resemble what that statement warns against. The member for Will's contribution today was to say that while there were many deaths in privately owned aged care facilities in Victoria, there were only six, Mr Deputy Speaker, in the state government-run aged care facilities in Victoria. What he failed to mention was that, of course, the state government of Victoria does not actually own or operate that many aged care facilities, that all of those aged care facilities are in rural and regional areas where there was no community outbreak. It's that level of misinformation, that level of myth-making, that level of compliance in attempting to take the loss of 680 lives in our aged care facilities and turn it to political advantage that I stand here today to rail against, Mr Deputy Speaker. I say shame on those opposite for using the deaths and the families of those people who suffered due to those deaths for some political point scoring. It is absolutely extraordinary that the member for Eden Monero would say that this government has ignored the crisis in aged care, and that is cruel. Under the previous government, they were given a report by the Productivity Commission, and for 4 long years, Mark Butler, who was otherwise an excellent Minister for Aged Care, sat on that report. Julia Gillard, the Prime Minister, sat on that report. There was a lack of investment in aged care. There was a lack of capacity building to aged care, while the Labor Party dithered, absolutely dithered, in its trying to do what? To do nothing? And it did absolutely nothing. And people suffered, Mr Deputy Speaker. This government has acted. Every time the Royal Commission has made recommendations, this government has responded. The myth from those opposite is that we have not. Not only have we responded, we have taken action. We have taken action to care for those vulnerable Australians that they talk about all the time but do so little to help. We have this experience, yes, but when you were in government, Shadow Minister, when you were in government, Shadow Minister, you did nothing for 4 years while people suffered.
The member for Mackellar will direct his comments through the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Chair. So that is what we suffer. For 15 years, I worked in the aged care sector. I saw the aged care sector in the early 2000s. Many of the aged care homes resembled Dickensian workhouses with the overwhelming stench of urine, with residents stuck in rooms of 4 people, often pressing their buzzers, waiting for someone to come to help. I saw what the injection of private sector innovation and funds and investment into this sector has done for the lives of people who have very little time left on this planet. I have seen the innovation in care. I have seen the difference that we have been able to make in this country by opening up this sector. I have seen the damage that government intervention has created. For those opposite to claim otherwise is simply put